You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our best of the year. This is our best Marvel Comics of 2024. And before people start laughing, or maybe they can stop laughing, there were some good books. Marvel had a tough year, I'll admit.
Yes.
A lot of the big books, and that's one of the problems is when you end up having anything going on and your big, marquee things aren't going as well, it does end up making everything kind of feel lesser. But there were a bunch of books. I'm sure that as we go through these, some people's teeth will be grinding because obviously not everybody likes the same things that everybody does. The whole thing with that. Now, again, there's a lot of negative videos out on YouTube. You can find them very easily. I sometimes slip into that mode unnecessarily or not even knowing. I don't want that to happen in this. So when we talk about a certain book or two or whatever, I don't want to say, well, we like this because we hate that or whatever. We're just going to give you our books that we like from 2024 from Marvel, not in any real particular order. And some of these, because we combine them in, some are your picks, some are mine. We have a couple that are combined, but we're just going to talk about them together. And then at the end, we just ask everybody to give us what your books are. And we have more than 5. The thing was, each of us came up with 5 and then combined the whole list. And as I said, we're going to talk about them, not in any particular order, but go through them. And there are some, and I will say, there'll be some that people will say, oh my God, why didn't you put this? Why didn't you put that? That's fine. You can let us know. But again, I kind of want 2025 to be a little more positive, kind of getting down. And even down when we are trying to be positive and then people turn into us being negative. I don't get it. But I kind of hope that maybe 2025 can be better. But let's have this as, hey, let's push away all the bad stuff and then talk about some stuff that we like, but also what everybody else likes. Tell us what you like. And I usually never say this because I think it's a given, but kind of be respectful to the other people. You could yell at me. Everybody always does. It does get to me. I'm telling you, I'm not even going to pretend that it doesn't bother me.
It definitely does.
Every single time I talk to you about it drives me nuts. But I think that I would rather, especially on this channel, if you're going to, you could yell about Matt too. You can yell about us. I hope you don't, but don't start ripping other people just because they're excited about things. That's one of the things that kind of gets me down. Right now, maybe I'm getting wiser in my old age, or I just lost my edge. I don't know. But we're going to start off with a book that I really like, and I really was surprised how much I did like it. It's Wolverine Deep Cut. It's Chris Claremont writing and Edgar Salazar on art. And I think Edgar Salazar did really well. He did the other issue, the other series with Chris Claremont.
Yeah, the art was great.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Deep Cut is something that always does, not intrigue me, but it kind of floats my boat.
Yeah, you love these things.
I love anything that goes back, even things that I hadn't really read because I hadn't read that point where this Wolverine Deep Cut takes place. But it is when Wolverine kind of goes away. The X-Men are supposedly dead. All this stuff to go and get just action. It really was just a bunch of action, a lot of Sabretooth stuff, a lot of stuff going on. But it was cool. And for me, these things are cool because I ended up reading comics later in life. I wasn't a kid reading comics. I'd like to say it was because I was too cool for that, but I was more playing sports, things like that. And I really didn't have any way to get them. There was no comic store in our town, nothing like that. So
really?
when you go back to the Wolverine Deep Cutter, even the stuff that Peter David was doing, and unfortunately he ended up having a lot of medical issues, and I'm not sure he's ever coming back. But
yeah, he didn't have it in this year, Peter David.
Yeah. So, and he did have that one that ended up coming out. What was it? That 2099 one, but it was it was already done. So,
I got that mixed up with the Orlando verse.
Yeah,
stuff,
and in fact, that was okay. I didn't love it, but I like these back in the day things because I wasn't there back in the day, and it kind of feels like you're going back in time to get these things. And I wish that DC would do more of that because they actually, with the Peter David stuff, the Maestro stuff and all that was really hitting. It was really, really good.
It's great.
So that's why I like this Wolverine Deep Cut. And plus, again, it was just at a time where a lot of writers were trying to be fancy and they're doing this and that. And this has continued from year after year. This was just Chris Claremont saying, hey, let's go and show you why Wolverine's cool. And let's have some action. I thought Edgar Salazar's art was really good. But we'll move on to the next one, and we're going to go through these pretty quick, I hope. But we don't want to overstay our welcome. This next one, I think people are going to get mad about, and it is Ultimate X-Men I have number one, but it's Ultimate X-Men.
Yeah.
And in that, it's Peach Momoko on art and writing. There is a translator. I've heard a bunch of things about Peach Momoko, and I've heard a lot of people hating on her. I like her art. I know that it's a thing that some people don't. And that's fine. The weird thing is I will never, and every time I review it with Jason, I say it. And in fact, Matt here told me at one point, you don't have to keep defending yourself for right, but you always feel like you have to.
You do for some reason. Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And so in that, I say every time we review it, it's not a great X-Men book because it's not really feeling like an X-Men book. But to me, and I'm a big manga fan, and I'm not a huge X-Men fan. So I actually like it, and I like that it's different. And in fact, at this point in 2025, I'm not really that invested in the Ultimate Universe anymore. I really am not.
Or the X-Men for that fact.
Or the X-Men. So when I go into it, I don't mind. Actually, to me, what I was going to say is it's actually an advantage at points where I don't need to know anything else because Peach Momoko has come out and said, I really don't know anything of what they're doing. It's crazy for me to give kudos to a book because it seemingly doesn't know what the other books are doing or whatnot, but that's why I like it.
That actually kind of makes it better in my mind because she's able to pull something so cool together without caring about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, and I know, again, I say it, I'll say it here, I understand, and there's no jumping on point if you didn't like this book. There's not a point where it changed that I could say, oh, you should jump on it now. But it is one of those books that you have to see, and I'm sure you've seen it. If it gets to you, if it's something you do like, you like it a lot. Like it's one of those weird plays of, I know people hate it a lot, but as much as you hate it, other people like it because exactly the same reason. It's not connected as much. It's something different. It doesn't feel like, okay, here we go. Let's go through the motions of the X-Men. And I said I didn't want to badmouth any books. But again, this is why I like this, say, over a Black Panther that doesn't seem to want to do much. And I know people even like the Ultimates and things. What I was getting for the most of the line of the Ultimate stuff is you're just kind of, dragging your feet to get to the maker and things like that, while Peach Momoko is just telling a story that you don't know what the heck's going to go on. And I like it. I actually like it. And I think the last bunch of issues have started to up the ante with this whole play of the X-Men and the mutants becoming known and things like that.
I agree. It's a slow burn and definitely totally different than what you're expecting at first. It takes a while to get into, but once you do, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. And again, I'm not going to say people have to read it or they should like it or why, because this is one of the books that I will defend, but I can't really defend it in a way of telling anybody because it's so different and it's so much of a personal thing, more than a lot of the others that I can't really say that people should read it. But if you haven't, and you haven't read it because of things you've heard, I mean, you should always give stuff a chance. But I'll never say, if somebody says this isn't for me, then it isn't. That's it. There's a lot of things. Me and you, before we started talking about this, we're even talking about when people complain about music and things like that and food or whatever. But everybody has their own taste. Everybody has what they want. I wasn't looking for a huge X-Men book, but I do realize that people, because of the lay of the land, the Krakoa, then leading into the Out of the Ashes, hasn't really been hitting. So it could have really been like an Ultimate Spider-Man, where it could have been something that it would give those fans something. Unfortunately, it's something different, and it seems like that's what they wanted.
Well, we'll see how Wolverine does. That could be something.
Yeah, I think that's going to be good.
Yeah,
that's a book that I'm looking forward to. Yeah, so again, me and you doing our Marvel podcast, and if you have never listened to me and Matt, I'm sure that people have heard me and you doing reviews on the channel. But if you haven't known or heard, we actually have a podcast where we talk about more books than we even put on, and you can check out the show notes for that. But again, we'll probably do at least the first one because we have other guys, Ruben and Jason, who do the X-Men books, but I'm looking forward to that. But we'll move to the next one, which will be the first one that you're going to give your little synopsis.
Yeah, so Superior Spider-Man by Dan Slott and Mark Bagley. For the most part, I think Mark Bagley was the artist. Almost forgot about this one, but then I think to myself, like, It's kind of the Dan Slott Spider-Man universe is kind of off to its own side, doing its own thing, not really involved with everything else. So last year you had the Spider-Man series by him, and then it went into Superior Spider-Man, and then we kind of got Spider-Boy going along. So I'm just kind of interested in all that, and it makes me happy because I'm not so down with what's going on in Amazing Spider-Man. So it's kind of a Spider-Man universe that I can get behind and have some fun.
And I know that people don't like Dan Slott. We're going to hear about him again. And the thing with Superior, me and you ended up doing it. I liked it. At first, but then it seemed to like get to that point where they were like, okay, this is going to end.
Yeah.
And it seemed a little rushed by the end. But at one point, now I remember when Spider-Man came out, the Dan Slott Spider-Man book, you were really into that.
Yeah,
and I wasn't really reading it. So I ended up catching up with that to go with Superior. And again, every time we'd have a review, people would fight with us just because of Dan Slott, which is fine. But it was pretty good. It really felt like that whole play. Again, it was going back to a little nugget there that you could end up grabbing during the Superior Spider-Man run that ended up where Doc Ock was doing some crazy stuff, ended up screwing over a girl, and then this was affecting Spidey. And the thing, I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The only reason I didn't have it on my list was because it ended up a little wonky.
It did. Not every issue was a home run, but the series as a whole, I look fondly back at. And Mark Bagley's a really good artist, too.
Yeah,
so
I like him too.
Ties it all together.
Yeah, so that is there. We'll move on to a book that was horrific in its visage.
I know. I still have nightmares from this.
Get Fury. And I'm telling you, the idea of how much of a prude I am, and I don't like over the top horror. Like I'm talking like things that you look at that are horrific. It's amazing that I like this, but I did. And we had a lot of fun at points talking about it, how crazy it was. But it's Get Fury, Garth Ennis and Jason Burrows on art. I'll tell you, it took me a little bit to get used to Jason Burrows' art, like 1 or 2 issues. But after that, with faces being melted off and things like that, I got used to it. But yeah, it ends up, I'll tell you right now, if you want something fun, don't go and read it. If you want something that you have a happy ending, don't go and read it, because I was shocked at the end of certain things that happened and who ended up coming out of that book and who didn't. And things like that was pretty over the top, but it was good. And we did like there was one issue, there was only like the 3rd issue, where there was one in the middle that we didn't quite love. But it was because it was getting too tangled up in this whole conspiracy between the CIA, the military. You ended up having Nick Fury, who was having some really bad stuff happen to him, and then obviously Punisher. It was kind of a little bit. All the rest were good.
It is. I mean, if you want realistic war stories, which Garth Ennis is kind of known for that. I mean, it's pretty. I don't know. I can't say accurate because I wasn't around.
Yeah, but it
seems like it is.
Yeah, I'm telling you, even if it isn't, it's way over the top more than any comic that I was reading. I mean, some of these things that happen when and again, the whole play is that you have the Punisher going to get Nick Fury. Frank is going to get Nick Fury, but these people that are involved, like they want it, but they more want Frank dead, and it's all setups and double cross applesauce stuff going on. But when they get to Nick Fury, when he gets Nick Fury, it is awful. It is so awful when you see what they've done, and it's like, holy crap. But it was really good. And again, I suggest people, if you are into something that might be a little more realistic and you don't care about happy endings and you don't care about over the top things, you might really like it. I liked it. I think it's one of those books that might get lost in the shuffle at the end of years like this, because it just kind of came out. People liked it, but I don't think it's like that name that pops into your head for a book at the end of the year. But we'll go to the next one, which is You. And it's a book that isn't even over yet. And it seems delayed, but
it's
you
not?
Go. No, I thought that there was still one. I'm not even sure. Yeah,
okay, I'm
not
happy
sure,
then.
But you go then. What is it?
I'm proud of this pick. Wolverine Revenge. I liked it a lot. I think the art's great. It's by Jonathan Hickman and Greg Capullo, which is basically an all-star creative team. So, it just is Wolverine getting revenge. I don't even care what the reason is. It just looks cool.
We had a lot of books like that this year,
He's attacking some people. Yeah, the stuff that Rob Liefeld was doing.
Did. Even the Wolverine Deep Cut was very much like that.
And even like Predator, Black Panther was like that too. It was just a lot of like those kind of books. But I like it. I'm looking forward to the conclusion.
I'll tell you, I think there's one, because I think the last one.
No, you're right.
We might have 2.
Maybe. Hopefully.
But in that, I know that this book is something that a lot of people have targeted as a, worse stuff. And I don't get that. I don't think it's that bad. People will argue probably here about it. The thing is, I think that a lot of people expected more than just a fight book or an over the top deal. And that's kind of what it is. So maybe it's one of those where the expectations were so high.
It's not trying to change the world. I don't think it ever
and I think that people want Jonathan Hickman to change the world all the time. And I think I think that he's just doing this and setting up scenes for Greg Capullo.
Yeah.
And doing them. And we even had where I think the last issue was where Deadpool and him are sitting on the nuclear reactor and then he throws them in at that one point. And even stuff with that, though, you have all that going on. I don't think it's that bad. I didn't have it on my list, but I like the art. I think the art, but again, I saw some people saying the art was terrible. I just don't get it, but you can let us know what you think. But yeah, I know that you liked each of the issues that we reviewed a little more than me. But yeah, I'm going to go to the next one that you didn't have on your list because again, I think it's something that a lot of people are still liking. I'm down on it at the moment, which is odd. But again, I haven't had a lot of picks at Marvel for this year, but it's Ultimate Spider-Man. And I think that most people will have this not only on their Marvel list, but of their overall. And a lot of people have this their number one. I'm getting bored with not having Spider-Man. I think that the idea of a monthly book that goes month to month. So in December, you will have, a Christmas issue. In November, you will have a Thanksgiving issue. But we're not really getting much of that story. And I think we're missing a lot. That's what the weird part is. It's not that I don't like what we get. It's that I'm frustrated with what we don't because we barely have seen Spider-Man for a year now in book learn to be Spider-Man. We've only seen a couple things. We never saw that progression of him not knowing what he's doing. Because remember, this is an older guy too. And I wanted to see, what happens when an older Peter becomes Spider-Man. And yet it's a lot about Ben and J. Jonah. I mean, they've been featured as much at more than Spider-Man, but as much as Peter. And
way more than Spider-Man.
It's frustrating, but in the roundabout deal on the other side of it, it is giving you what you want with the family. But again, frustrating at points of you're not even getting enough of, May, who I love, or, Richard is there. He just is there to gush about J. Jonah's book, it seems, most of the time. And so, again, I have it on my list because I think it's good. It's one of those, maybe like the Wolverine Revenge, that it could be so much better. And that's why I get frustrated. When we do reviews for it, I get frustrated at points and people get mad. Oh, this is the best book. And I said at one point, I think that people are afraid to say it's not as good right now because they think that makes Marvel think, hey, they don't care about the family. It's weird. But again, it's one of those things that I picked, and I'm like, it's not a straight up winner for me at the moment. But I think maybe if we get towards it, it really has to convince me to like it when the maker comes. Because at one point I said, I don't really even care about that, but that's the big thing.
Do you think that Mark Miller's going to be in charge of that?
I don't know.
That's a rumor going around.
There was the rumor going, and this guy ended up giving me this rumor that there was going to be an announcement, and then did say after I made the video, it's like, oh, they pulled that back, and it's going to be later. I don't know. I don't know. That'd be big, but
it'd be big. But I don't know if that's what I want him doing. But we'll see.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those books though that I said even during our regular show that I think people would like it. I think that you could recommend it to people, but there's always, you have that caveat of saying, well, it's really good, but we're not getting a lot of Spider-Man.
Or it could almost be called Ultimate Green Goblin.
Yeah, you said that. I think it could be Ultimate Ben and J. Jonah.
It's like Ultimate anybody but Spider-Man.
I don't mind that. And Gabe got a lot of crap for the last issue, but again, it always ends up leaving me wanting more, but that's okay at times. But I need more, but it's still on my list. It's still one of the better ones. And yeah, it's probably helped out by the idea that Amazing Spider-Man was god-awful for the year. But again, I don't want to go that game, but it is still one of my favorite. I like Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate
No, you
X-Men.
want a good Spider-Man book. What's wrong with that?
Again, you can tell from where we review and stuff like that, we do still do Ultimate Spider-Man and we still do Ultimate X-Men. And both are Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm still wanting to review it because I know or hope that it will get better even. But at this moment, it's a little low for me. So if people like the last review or this or that, it's because I am getting frustrated, but I still like it. But we'll go to the last book on our list. And this is on both of our lists. People be damned. this was a thing that, again, if you go back and see, I did a video for when Spider-Boy was announced. I said in the video, I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but I don't know that we need this. And it convinced me otherwise. You go with the credits. And
it's Dan Slott again and Paco Medina, who is, equal in my mind as far as creating this character goes. Because with all the cool stuff they're doing and the art's great, it just makes me happy to read it. I think we have a good time reviewing it.
And it is Spider-Boy.
It's Spider-Boy.
We didn't say. Yeah, it's Spider-Boy.
Spider-Boy.
So, yeah, it's Spider-Boy. Yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, Spider-Boy's a fun comic, man. It makes me reminisce about, what made me like to read comics in the first place.
And it's an all ages comic. And I'll tell you, too, if you were reading and the first arc, it was a bit longer and it was about, Bailey going and these other kids that were turned. It was good, but it's actually getting better. It's one of the few books that I think has gotten better. It
is definitely getting better.
In the past, 4 or 5 months. Once we got out of that first arc, which is more of the dealing with the origin and dealing with, once everybody remembered Bailey, and again, people mainly were upset at Spider-Boy because they thought, oh, he's going to be an amazing Spider-Man. Now he has showed up a little even this week. But it's never big. It's something just there. He was there for one panel and 2 issues, right? So you end up where in his own book, he is a character that if you haven't read it and you're just like, I don't think that the idea makes sense. Oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. This is what they did with Miss Marvel, whatever. It's not like that. They don't like Dan Slott doesn't even write Bailey to be elevated. He writes him to be just a kid who messes up a lot and ends up kind of being broken at points. We talk about it every time we review it, but the idea that Bailey is not a perfect kid and nobody in the book says he is. He is in this thing. He's doing a thing in Marjaport in a fighting tournament that's like the Kumite from Bloodsport. And he's there because he messed up in the past. Once everybody
Daredevil's like, you got to fix this, dude.
Yeah, they got to fix it. And they go, and it's Daredevil's not sitting there saying, man, Bailey, you're the best. You're the best. He doesn't even feel concerned with him. And it has some funny jokes, but it's just a fun book. I've even talked to people who did not want any parts of it. And since it's been the fighting tournament, I said, you got to give it another chance. And they love it. And Gray, who I talk to all the time and is on a bunch of podcasts with me and things like that, he loves it too. Like most people, even if they didn't say, oh, I'm not going to like that or whatever, eventually everybody who I know has given it at least a chance, actually likes it enough. I mean, it's not going to be your favorite book, most people, but it's one of those where at least you can say, like, this is pretty cool. This is a pretty cool book. And it's just fun, right? I mean, the whole thing is just for fun.
I think the character's great. I mean, I'm thinking right now, if they put him in that next Into the Spider-Verse movie,
the people love him.
This dude will be this will be one of the biggest characters
remember
ever.
What happened was when it first came out, they announced it. That's what they thought this all was. Like, he's just doing that.
Now you could do it. Or just a standalone Spider-Boy animated where Spider-Man pops in every now and then. It would be big.
It'd be like, Spider-Boy and Friends you could have.
Yeah, there you go.
In this tournament, you also have Spider-Girl. And this would drive people nuts if they don't read it.
I like her too.
And you don't realize what the character is Spider-Girl because she's talking crap. She's making fun of Bailey and using that. She's not really Spider-Girl. She's just using that to mess with him and ends up having all this. And you have Hulklet. What is it? Hulkette.
Hulkette, yeah.
Hulkette is just but it's nothing that's going to be in the Hulk. It's just this character, and they're just fun. It's there as this little side deal, like you said about Superior and the Slott verse. Again, there's some people who will never read a Dan Slott thing because he's a jerk online, and I get it, but it's really fun. And it is, if I'm telling you, just to piss people off, I guess. If we had a definitive number one, it's Spider-Boy. Me and you would pick Spider-Boy because I think it's been one of the more consistently fun books, and that's kind of what we want. Like Get Fury might be a bigger book and something like, but I'd rather have a fun all ages deal that I laugh at. Again, let us know what your books are. There is a couple books, and even as I'm saying the Spider-Boy deal, I know that people will mention Fantastic Four, which I do have to admit I don't love it. But I jumped in later anyway, but I still think it's consistently good enough compared to a lot of other books. But it's that one shot play that I don't love. And people bring up Incredible Hulk and things like that. And we're not going to give a whole list of our honorable mentions. You had some, and I have some in mind. But some of these books that people would bring up are probably honorable mentions for us. But a lot of books were inconsistent this year, and Marvel really has to step it up.
Yeah, it was scrolling. I got to tell you, scrolling through all the issues, which is what I did to figure this out. It was pretty depressing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, at one point I did say that it's weird. I don't even know what I think of generally, but DC for the most part was like they were a lot of mid throughout the year. I think it's getting better.
It is.
But it's like mid. But Marvel would have like, oh my God, I love this book. And then they would have books I'm like, I have never read anything worse. Like they have such a roller coaster of, tens and ones and tens and one. And DC was like a 6.5, for a lot of it. So
and two bad events, two really, or at least three, actually, if you include Venom more.
Yeah, these events have been
which have been
awful.
Very bad. I mean, the events Marvel events used to be the biggest things ever. Civil War and Secret Invasion. And
not anymore.
All that stuff we review.
Now is they're scheduled things that they do every summer and whatever. It sucks. But, things are like that. They have, I realized too at one point when Tom Brevoort said about the X-Men, when somebody said, please, there's not going to be as many books, right? I'll be able to. And he's like, nope, there's going to be the same amount because that's what the guys in the bean counters say. That's what accounting wants. I'm like, I hate that you said that. I know you're being honest, so kudos to you. But the idea of knowing that this stuff is driven by the accountants, the accountants, they drives me nuts. But there you go. Those are our books. I know that some are, a little sketchy for some, I'm sure. But let us know what yours are, and then I can laugh at yours. That's what we'll do. But I don't want to fight. I'm done with. I'll still fight with people. I don't want to fight with people, and people tend to I'll argue with them. I don't mean it in a mean way. It's just, people do, and then it becomes personal.
Are you still going to respond to every message?
I try. I'll tell everybody. If you're watching the deal, Matt even says you're insane because you respond. But I figured that if somebody if they're going to type something out and take the time, I will respond. But sometimes it's not so nice. But I try to respond, but that's that. So I hope people like the show. Didn't have a DC one yet. We'll see. Eric's not doing it.
I'm waiting to see what
I do. It'll be a solo effort, and then people would just yell at me because I asked Eric, and he's like, "I don't want to do it." And then he's yelling again, a one shot for the book of the year.
Yeah, he said it again this week. I'm like, God.
Because I really like that Feral Trees by G. Will Wilson, but it's not my book of the year. It's a one shot.
Yeah, we didn't put Doom on our book of the year.
I feel weird putting if we had an end of year awards, we would have best single issue. Yeah, and that would have been it. I probably would have put that.
I don't know. I'd pick Spider Boy Kid Pool.
Oh my goodness, you were insane. That thing went on too long. Even I liked it at first, and I'm like, okay.
No, Doom was great.
Doom was really good. So yeah, I'm sure that people, and if you want to put that as your book of the year or one of them, that's fine. I always feel like it's like at points where you'll have end of year award shows, and somebody will give the award to a book that had one issue and is a continuing thing. Only one issue of the year. It came out December, and they're already calling it
Birds
the book
of Prey.
The year. And that's what I thought of last year for Birds of Prey. People, it's like 2 or 3 issues in, and people were trumpeting that as the book of the year. Like, you were insane. Plus, issues weren't that good. But again, I don't want to be too negative.
Subjective.
So, yeah, it is. Again, I always say, even when we have books or announcements, I will rarely say this book is going to suck because who knows? And everybody likes their own thing. I kind of said it a bit with Spider-Boy, and I was wrong. So I can't go with that route, but everybody has their own favorites. Everybody has a reason. There'll be somebody who puts all X-Men books, and that's fine. I don't read them right now. I've kind of given up on them. But with that, let us know. Let us know what you like. We'll see how it goes. Maybe the start of a 2025 that's more positive. We could talk about the comics we love, not just the comics we don't. But again, I'm going through all this, and I always have something else to blabber about. The idea when we review things, we just review things that come out. That doesn't mean that we pick them to review. We will always review a certain amount of books and whatnot. And if we don't like them, we usually drop them on this podcast, on the Marvel thing. So I do like that. But it doesn't mean we're still going to say everything's great, because I hate when people falsely say everything's great as well. So all of that, all rolled up into one. I don't even know if we make sense anymore. It's getting late. But with that, thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining me, Matt. Let us know what your favorites are, and then we'll look forward to more and better things in 2025. But we'll see you later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.